Adverbs are dumb. If you want to be a good fiction writer, then adverbs clutter up your sentences, and usually there's almost always a better alternative. Using adverbs are like a plague. They are like a virus that infect your writing.
A virus.
Adverbs
Or a disease.
If you stop using adverbs, or if you simply use them less, then you're instantly gonna improve your writing. But if you're new here and you love storytelling or writing or anything to do with that, subscribe and hit the bell and I'll keep you updated with future videos. How do you get rid of more adverbs? So really there are two main ways. The first way is simply to delete them. The easiest way to do this is to just go to the find tool in Word, type in ly, it'll come up with all the adverbs in your Word document, and then you can just delete them, and you should probably delete most of them. Sounds a bit extreme, but most of the time you don't need the adverb. For example, in the sentence, suddenly a velociraptor jumped out of the bushes, the adverb suddenly actually makes the sentence less sudden. Instead, you should just write a velociraptor jumped out of the bushes, because you're using less words and the reader is physically spending less time reading it, and so it is much more sudden. It is very counterintuitive, but it's true. If you stop using the word suddenly, your writing will become much more sudden. That is the beauty of simply deleting the adverbs. It instantly makes your writing better. Or a classic way that people use adverbs is after saying he said or she said. For example, I don't want to go to the dentist, said Billy angrily. You don't have to use the adverb angrily, because most of the time the reader is perfectly able to imagine how Billy said it. You should just say, I don't want to go to the dentist, said Billy. And that is perfectly fine, because most people think that by adding the adverb you're making it more interesting, but by adding more words you're expressing as little meaning as possible in the most words as possible, which is what makes readers turn off, throw the book away. It was Stephen King who said that there's a certain beauty to simply saying he said or she said. It expresses what you mean, and usually the reader can decipher the tone of voice that the person is using when they're saying it.
You have no claim over me, you miserable rat!
If Billy is saying, I don't want to go to the dentist, then the reader is usually using those words as well as using the context that they were said in and everything that happened previously in the past. They can use all of that information to basically work out how Billy said it, and they can probably work out that he said it angrily, so you don't need to use the extra adverb to describe it. Or another example is in the sentence, his face looked badly bruised after being punched, and you simply don't need to use the adverb badly because it makes the sentence worse, because it's using more words again, and you should just say his face looked bruised after being punched. The second way to use less adverbs is to add something else instead, and there are multiple infinite ways that you can do this. For example, you can use metaphors. There are literally infinite ways that you can say something and you can describe something. For example, in the sentence the man ate greedily, you could say instead the man ate, he was a ravenous wolf. That is a much more vivid image in the reader's mind. Of course you're using more words to describe something, but I believe these words are justified because they create such a vivid image in the person's mind. They can really visualize how the man is eating like a ravenous wolf, and that is what makes metaphors pop. Or you can use similes. Instead of using the sentence, the sun rays shone brightly on his face, you could say the sun rays hit his face like an invisible storm. And that is what makes it boom, boom, boom so amazing when you can use a simile that no one has ever come up with, because it makes that simile stand out from everything else that has ever been written before, and that is what makes it unique. Another one of my favorite ways to stop using adverbs is to use body language instead.
And don't underestimate the importance of body language.
Because actually 55% of communication is body language. Even when you're watching this video, if you're watching me, then the body language that I'm using has more effect on you than the actual words that I'm using, which is strange to believe. Also, 38% of the communication that you're portraying to other people is the tone of voice that you're using, and only 7% is the actual words that you're saying. And that is what illustrates the importance of body language in writing. writing. This is one of those things that if you include in your writing, it makes your writing sound more professional. I'll illustrate this with a conversation that I had with my friend Jeff. Jeff told me, I'm feeling quite sad today. And I said, you're feeling sad? And he said, yeah, I'm feeling sad. The fact that I said, you're feeling sad, I just repeated the last few words of what he said to me. And now Jeff didn't really quite pinpoint the fact that I repeated the words that he said exactly. He didn't quite pinpoint it, but the fact that I repeated those words meant that he knew that I understood him, and so it had a very strong emotional impact on him. And so it's one of those things that you can't quite pinpoint why something is, but it still has such an emotional impact on you, in the same way that including body language in your writing will have a strong emotional impact on the reader, but they won't be able to quite pinpoint why the writing is so good. It just will be. Including body language in writing is like wind flowing into your words, and the reader doesn't quite see it. He doesn't quite notice it, but it's definitely there. And the emotional impact on the reader is definitely palpable, in the same way that you see the effects of the wind, but you don't see the wind. For example, instead of saying the woman sat on the chair tiredly, you should say the woman slouched on the chair, her face stared up at the ceiling, her eyes sullen. Anything to do with body language, hand movements, or the eyes, or the posture of the person will all make the writing seem much more real, because in the same way that metaphors and similes do, the reader will be able to visualize it much more clearly, because body language is 55% of communication, and compared to the actual words that the person is saying, describing the body language of the person is going to have much more impact on the reader. So if you found this video interesting or useful, then give it a like and I'll be happy, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.